Hello and welcome to another episode of Unfiltered, the ALDE Party podcast where we unpack some of today's hottest liberal issues. My name is Anna, and I'll be your host today to tackle a question that feels almost radical in 2026. Can hope still win? Because so often today, politics feels like a constant stream of negativity, fear, and outrage. But last year, D66 in the Netherlands showed that something different was possible. They ran a campaign based on optimism, and they won. So, joining me today is one of the people behind that campaign, and now a member of parliament, Felix Klos. Welcome.
Thank you.
Before we dive into the big political questions, let's get to know you a little bit better. Off the record, shall we say. So, you helped run a huge and successful campaign last year. What was the first thing you did once it was all over and you got the news?
I hugged my girlfriend because we were watching together.
Good start.
Then I hugged my brother, who is also in the room. And I found out through bitter experience that it's better to watch the results by yourself instead of in a big room with people, because we've often been disappointed. Of course, this was not a night to be disappointed, but we celebrated. So hugs were in order.
Yes, I saw it on TV myself. And something else, my sources tell me, those sources being Wikipedia and Google, that you have written a book about none other than Winston Churchill. A bit of a surprise, doesn't seem very like D66 vibes. What's that all about?
Well, on the contrary, he was the first social liberal or progressive liberal, as we say, in the early 20th century. But also he was one of the figureheads of the European movement after the Second World War. And I think he can rightfully be called the father of Europe. And he created the wave that others like Schuman and Monet later rode. So this is my interest in Europe was sparked by Winston Churchill.
It's time to get into the big questions. Well, what we've seen are a lot of political parties in Europe doubling down on negativity, fear, and really tough rhetoric. But last year in the D66 campaign, you all chose a different way, an optimistic and hope-based message. And it was successful. You won in record numbers. Why do you think it worked?
I think mainly it worked because it was authentic. We have always been optimistic. It's not much use being anything else. But also there was a sort of cloud of negativity hanging over the country at the time because the previous government hadn't been able to do really anything for people. And people were, I think, yearning for a message of positivity and optimism. And so we were also a bit lucky that we were heard.
Yeah. And what groups do you think were most receptive to a hopeful message? And are there other groups you thought and people that were more difficult to reach?
Well, of course, I think people who are optimistic themselves or optimistic about their own lives are sort of easiest to reach with a message like that. But I think what we tried to do in this campaign is we tried to reach the people who normally don't vote for us, who are actively against us. And so we sought the campaign in towns where our vote score was actually the lowest in the last campaign, and it wasn't much recognized nationally at the beginning of the campaign, but later on it was noticed in the local papers where we would campaign. And I think it had a big effect because we were actually listening to people and taking into account their concerns, which they hadn't seen from us previously.
And what kind of concerns were you hearing from people out there in those conversations?
Mostly about housing. People are looking for a home, but also about the fact that they felt that the government wasn't able to do anything, that their problems weren't being solved.
And, with this message of optimism, you really set yourself in a different position. You say, we are a force for good. We are the hope for a positive future. And do you think you stood to gain anything by refusing to copy today's politics of outrage and kind of falling for that far-right narrative that everything is going wrong?
Sure, but I also have to be honest, we did challenge them. So it wasn't like we were, holier than the Pope. We challenged the populists on their message, and we were very frank and outright in our own messaging. So it's not like we weren't fighting, but we were fighting the good fight as we see it.
Okay, but then how did you deal with cutting through on social media? Because we know that, outrage is more or less what's going viral or getting a lot of views on social media. So then what was your way to cut through the noise?
I think our way, or at least Rob Jetten's way, our leader in the campaign, was to have authentic conversations. And I'll give you an example of that. When our headquarters were attacked in the middle of the campaign, instead of saying, I hate everyone who did that, he said, he clearly drew a line. This is unacceptable. But also, I want to talk to the people who did it, because somewhere there's a legitimate concern about the government not working for them that I need to address. And he had those conversations. He even had them on live TV.
He did.
And I think having an authentic conversation and actually listening, so it's not a trick, you're actually listening, is what cuts through to people. So it's not gimmicky, is what I want to say.
Okay. And what was that experience like watching him on live television, talking to those individuals? Was your heart beating fast, or did you feel confident it would be successful?
No, for me it was nerve-wracking, of course. I mean, I would be lying if it wasn't. But also, I know that he's good at doing that. So it's also, I mean, having a good campaign is not in the hands of a campaign manager or of a spokesperson or a speechwriter. It's in the hands of the one actually leading it and having that conversation. Okay,
so that's really interesting. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about your party leader, Rob Jetten, now the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. He seems to be a very charismatic leader. He's one of the most popular now in terms of liberal leaders. He's really putting himself out there. He's highly visible. How much of the success of the campaign do you think was down to his sort of personal appeal or personal brand as a politician?
I think about close to 100%.
Close to 100, whoa.
Yeah. But also, I think if you can track it to previous campaigns where I was also involved with, we lost in a big way the campaign before this one. And he was also the leader of that campaign. And one of the things that he was able to do is to show voters that he was authentic in both campaigns. Because in the first campaign that we lost horribly, he was himself. He was very good in the debates. And people picked him sort of as a semi-winner, even though he had lost, because he had just taken over the leadership of the party. And then he held on, of course, with a scar on his face, and then came to the next campaign and did it again with the same message, the same sort of hopeful joy. And I think voters recognized that as authentic again, and then he won. So it's also about being there, showing up, trying again, not giving up when you fail once.
All right. So we've had a successful campaign. You now have a prime minister from D66. What's next for you all? What are your priorities now, and how are you going to follow through on them?
So the priorities are straight. We want a pro-European government that effectively tackles the housing crisis. And I think that one of the things the government's doing right now is to work away that sort of backlog of things that hadn't happened previously. So we want to build 100,000 homes every year because we have a shortage of 1 million homes. We want to be energy independent. And we want the Dutch government to come to this city, Brussels, where we are today, and to be a force for good and a stronger Europe.
A stronger Europe. So how do you see the role of the Netherlands in the upcoming MFF negotiations, for example, the EU's long-term budget? Typically, Netherlands has been kind of a frugal country, let's say. Will that be changing for you all?
I think we will look at the MFF in the way that we always have, which is that it should make Europe stronger. And so it should be more modern, right? We shouldn't just spend on agriculture and cohesion, we should spend on the future. And that's a slogan that my party has run on for a long time, for the future.
And now it's time.
And now it's time. Let's invest in innovation, let's invest in defense and in our security and safety, and let's make that budget a tool of our priorities rather than a tool of the past.
All right, maybe we could come back to housing for a moment. The housing crisis has been a huge issue we've seen in our research and in any sort of public opinion research that's been done. Housing has been seen to be one of the biggest issues for Europeans, and particularly in the Netherlands, this is a very acute situation. Do you think effective solutions can be put forward for the housing crisis on the European level, or how do you see European cooperation in terms of housing? I know it's typically more of a national competence, but there has been some movement put forward by the European Commission on the topic.
And my colleague and MEP Brigitte van den Berg, who sits here in Brussels in the European Parliament for D66, has been working on this. But I think you're right, it's always been additional. Europe can make things possible, but at the end of the day, housing is a national competence, and we have to take responsibility for our own issues. So we have to build as quickly as we can, and we will.
Let's dial back a little bit. Can you tell us about why you got into politics and, what led you to being a member of parliament today?
So I've always felt that politics is the best place to achieve anything really, change on a societal level. So I've always been interested in politics as a tool for good. And one of the things that I did when I was younger, so to speak, I interned with Bernie Sanders in Washington, D.C., and then I worked on Hillary Clinton's campaign in Iowa. And then I started working as a speechwriter for Alexander Pechtold, who was then the leader of D66, and did that as well for Sigrid Kaag, who was the leader after that, and then for Rob Jetten.
Okay,
so I've been,
it's a long road.
Yeah, so I've been working within D66 for a long time, and I've seen the good that politics can bring. So I wanted to continue that and be in this role myself. Yeah.
And is there anything from American campaigns that you think we need more of or less of in Europe?
Yes. So direct democratic engagement, door knocking, talking to people on the street, and I try to effectuate this in my work every day as well. Where if I go and visit a company, I will also try and visit a community where I will ask people and knock on their door and ask them what do they think about local issues here. And I'm not so much telling them what my point of view is. I'm listening to what their concerns are. And I think if we do that more often in politics in Europe, I think the bonds of trust between politicians and voters will strengthen as well.
Right. I mean, that sounds like something you implemented in last year's campaign as well, in terms of really going around and putting the party leader forward and sitting down with people and really not just talking to them or at them, which sometimes very much happens in politics, but really listening to what they have to say and taking their concerns on board and really committing to do something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, people also understand that it's not easy to do something about it. And that's also part of the conversation, is listening to what needs to be done, but then also being honest about the limits of what you can do about it. So I think building trust is also about having an honest conversation, dialogue.
And what for you would you say is the biggest difference between working behind the scenes in politics, which you have a lot of experience with, and now being a member of parliament? Like, what's shifted for you? Is there anything unexpected about the job that you wouldn't have known from working behind the scenes?
Well, it's really easy to work behind the scenes because then you just advise someone on what they do, and then afterwards you tell them that it wasn't good enough or that it was very good, but you have no skin in the game basically except for the result. And now when I go into a debate, it's a sort of high wire live act, right? You're debating someone else and you can always make a mistake. So it feels much more urgent to be sort of on your toes the entire time. Yeah, it's a different type of energy, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what's the hardest thing about it?
The hardest thing, I think, are the plenary debates where you have to be prepared for anything. So the way it works in the Dutch parliament is you can be interrupted by any party for however many times, for however long. So sometimes when you're speaking, you can just be answering questions, a barrage of questions actually. Mostly when you're in government, the opposition parties want to know something from you. So you can be there for about 2 or 3 hours just answering questions. And they can range from any topic. So it's really difficult to be prepared for that.
Okay, that's really that Dutch openness, I think, in action. I mean, how do you even stay on schedule during the debates if you're constantly being interrupted?
We don't.
You don't? Okay.
We go home at 3 a.m.
3 a.m. Oof. And then back at 7, I guess.
Mostly,
if not before.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. And how do you think having the experience of working behind the scenes, how does that shape how you approach your job today?
I think I have learned to come in well prepared. So what I was just talking about is I know the difficulties of the job, and I try to prepare for them as well as I can. I'm not sure if it always works, but at least I try. Yeah.
Interesting. And, when we were preparing for this show, I watched a couple of clips of, different videos of you speaking, just checked out the social media, as you have to do when you're doing your research for an episode. And I thought, you're a very good public speaker. What do you think, having been a speechwriter, teaches you about public speaking?
Well, it teaches me, or it's something that I've long believed that in politics, your sort of main toolkit is language, right? Because speaking about what direction your country will take is something that we craft in language and then turn into policy. So I think starting with policy first is underestimating voters, because first you need to have a conversation with them about how they view their country and how they want to talk about it. So I think, for me, I think the main lesson is language is not something that sort of comes after, it's something that comes first. Yeah.
Fascinating. What would you say is the one thing that keeps you energized, if anything, in your work?
My family.
Your family, okay.
Yeah. I see them first thing in the morning, and when I come home, hopefully not too late. But then I still check on them, of course. Yeah. What keeps me energized as well is the prospect of being able to change something. I am very aware of the fact that it's an unbelievable privilege to be in this job, because you can wake up and try to change something that you have thought of that morning, and you actually have the tools at your disposal. I can think of writing a resolution that will become reality that afternoon, and then the government has to go and do something. And I'm also very much aware that I have a limited time and space to do that. I won't be here forever. So it's also a bit of the pressure, but it's also the energy, I think, and the adrenaline that comes with that.
Yeah, no, you only have so many hours in the day, and being a member of parliament, seems like you might have had to shift your focus to work on very specific questions and your priorities. How do you stay connected to Europe?
Yeah.
and the European Union? You have a great team here in the European Parliament. Yeah. But how do you still keep that front and center in your work?
It's one of the things that I value the most, because the connection between national politics and Brussels needs to be much stronger in order to make Europe stronger. And it's also the reason that I went from working in the European Parliament, which was my last job, to working now in this role, because I know that in order to make the EU stronger, the capitals have to choose to make Europe stronger. Right. So that's sort of my main mission. And also what I do in national politics, I do climate and energy on the one hand, and I do European affairs on the other. Right. And those topics are often intertwined. So most of the legislative debates that we do are about legislation that is passed on from Brussels. Yes. But then also we debate with the minister about what she's going to do in Brussels in order to change that legislation. Right. So as part of my job, the European Union is just a fact. It's not a nice to have. It's a need to have.
I mean, especially in climate and sustainability, of course.
What will we do with a country of 18 million? I mean, we can do a lot, but we have to work together with the rest of Europe, and we can achieve much more with 450 million.
Stronger together, 100%.
That's right.
So now it's time to transition to something a little bit more fun. It's a small game called our 60-second challenge, and it works like this. I am going to randomly pick a topic or a policy, something like that, and you have to explain it in less than 60 seconds as if we'd never heard of it before.
Okay.
All right. So your topic is 10 new cities. Go.
Just 60 seconds?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so everyone in the Netherlands knows someone who is looking for a home. Everyone also knows someone who is not making the choices that they want to make in their lives because they can't find the home that they want to have. So instead of saying we go small, we said we go big. We built 10 new cities. We built 100,000 homes each year in order to work away that shortage of 1 million homes. And we can do this because we in the Netherlands, we've created space before and will create space again.
Okay. Whew. I think it was less than
60 seconds?
Yeah, a little bit less. Our producer will let us know, but how did he do? Of course, don't hesitate. Do you think 10 new cities are possible? Let us know in the comments. All right, everyone, it's time to wrap up with our now infamous Hero or Zero challenge. So, one more game, and it works like this. I am going to show you randomly 2 pictures of politicians or public figures that have been making the headlines lately. Okay. And you have to choose which person is the hero and which person is the zero. And it will purposefully be challenging to answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, your people are this. Peter Magyar, new Prime Minister of Hungary, recently elected, defeated Viktor Orban. And the Pope. So,
oh man,
who is the hero and who is the zero and why?
And I have to explain as well?
Yes, motivate.
I'm going to go with Magyar as the hero.
Okay.
And the Pope as the zero.
Okay, develop.
For the latter, I have no actual explanation except to say that given this choice, I am secular, non-religious, and I respect the Pope and religion, of course, but the EU is closer to my religion.
Fair enough.
Peter Magyar currently, for all his flaws, is making it possible for the EU to become stronger since he has wrested it from the hands of Viktor Orban. And I think he deserves some merit and a medal for that.
So today we've talked about hope, fear, and the future of our liberal movement. So to end on this, what advice would you give to any liberal party that feels stuck, afraid, or doesn't know the way forward?
Yeah, if I can give some advice to liberal parties who feel stuck, it would be this. We felt stuck many a time. We've been brought to our graves many a time. And we've always stood up because we didn't just look forward, but we also looked inward. I think liberalism has a lot to offer in terms of values. And if we look inward enough, if we use our liberal strength, then we will go forward naturally as well.
Our liberal strength. We love to hear it. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Felix. It was an honor to have you, and I know I'm certainly inspired. And that's a wrap for this episode of Unfiltered, the Liberal Take. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or right here on YouTube. Thanks, and see you next time.